Wait a minute, I hear something.
Dr. Movie! Dr. Movie! Movie reviews! Dr. Movie! Dr. Movie! Yeah!
What's going on, everybody? Yep, it's time again for another Dr. Movie! Your favorite podcast that's in a car. I'm hoping it's your favorite podcast in the car. Maybe it's your favorite podcast in your car that you listen to while I'm driving, or while you're driving, while I'm talking in my car. Does that make any sense? Probably not. Anywho, we're continuing looking at the body-swapping movies of the 80s. Like I said, there was just a bunch of these that came out right there at the same time. And here's an interesting one, and I remember this one pretty well. Watched it several times, and I still like this one. And it's called 18 Again, from 1988. So again, right there in that same time frame of Big, and that's what I'm saying. All these came out right. It's like somebody just pulled the trigger on, let's make body swapping movies, and that's all. Because that's kind of what happened here. But fantasy comedy, 1988. Our synopsis of following a car accident on his 81st birthday, ruthless businessman Jack Watson discovers that he somehow switches bodies with his timid 18-year-old grandson. Yeah, that's pretty much it. What makes this one different, and another movie that we'll possibly talk about in this section of movies too, is, you know, in all the other movies you get the younger person has to go and deal with the life of the older person. Well, this one's a little different because, well, we'll get to it in a minute. Let's talk about our cast first. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the one and only George Burns in this, right? I mean, it's George Burns. I mean, you know, and known for everything, right? You know, he's classic. He's iconic. Great one-liners, right? And that's what the majority of this movie is just voiceover one-liners from George Burns. And I don't have a problem with that. We got Charlie Schlatter in this. Now, Charlie Schlatter, when you see him, you'll be like, man, I recognize him. Well, he was kind of, it's almost like they were setting him up to be the new hot thing, and it just didn't really happen. Most people think of him as when they did the Ferris Bueller TV series, he was Ferris Bueller, right? That's kind of what you think of. He don't look anything like Matthew Broderick. But anyways, but I know him because of this movie, right? We got Anita Morris in this. She's known for playing risque type characters. She's in Ruthless People, a bunch of stuff like that. We got a very young Pauly Shore in this movie. And it's weird to watch Pauly Shore not be Pauly Shore, right? I mean, he hasn't really defined that character yet that we know, the Weasel, right? At this point, he's playing pretty straight-laced, kind of nerdy. So, an interesting watch. You know, I don't remember him being in this movie at all. And that's probably why, because he wasn't really that significant, except just being, you know, Charlie Schlatter, whose name is David Watson. He's George Burns' grandson in the movie. It's his best friend. So we got that. We got Red Buttons in this, another classic actor from back in that time. He plays Charlie, who is George Burns' character's best friend. They kind of grew up together and all that stuff. Jennifer Runyon is the catch of the moment in this one. I mean, from as weird as it sounds, Up the Creek. That's kind of what I know her from. She was in Carnosaur. So, poor girl, to go from 18 Again to Carnosaur. But hey, you do what you gotta do, right? She's also in the Very Brady Christmas movie in 88, same year as this. So, The In Crowd. Hey, I forgot about that one. Another good flick. Tony Roberts is in this as the dad. You got Miriam Flynn in this, playing David's mother and father. She's not playing the mother and father. Tony Roberts is the dad. Miriam Flynn is the mom. Miriam Flynn, when I think of her, I think of, well, Christmas Vacation, because she's the wife to Cousin Eddie. So when I say that, you instantly know who I'm talking about, right? So very distinct figures, you know who she is. And for the most part, that's the only ones worth really talking about. You get some people that you see. Hal Smith is in this, right? Hal Smith is Otis from Andy Griffith's show. So, you know, you're getting a lot of classic TV people in this, or classic movies. So, anywho, let's talk about this one. The setup for this is George Burns' character Jack is a successful businessman who's also very hard-nosed, right? And he's got his son working for him, and he's rough on his son, right? And when I say his son, I'm talking about David's father, who's, you know, he's in his 40s, possibly his 50s, and his dad's giving him a hard time about he just can't seem to do things right, all that kind of mess, right? And so there's a strained relationship there. And David comes in, who's the grandson that Jack, which is George Burns, he absolutely loves his grandson. And it's ironic, the setup of this movie is David goes to school, or he's in college, he's trying to get in a frat, and, you know, he's got all the guys there that are making him do their homework assignments, write their lecture papers, got him doing push-ups, got him going out and doing weird stuff, and they're just rough on him. And he's also on the track team. Hello, like father, like son, almost the same idea. He's on the track team, and he's on the track team with the same guy that's the lead of this fraternity, and he don't like the guy, but he feels like he wants to be a part of the fraternity. It's that story too, right? And you get some interesting stuff going on, so you kind of get insight of his life. But he's also in love with Robin, which is Jennifer Runyon, and of course she don't even know he exists. They're in the same class together, but he's just, you know, totally captivated by her. But she's also dating the guy that's the lead of the fraternity, so it's that double whammy thing, right? Well, George Burns' character is having his 81st birthday, and he's got this live-in woman plaything that's staying with him, and she's obviously even younger than his kids, right? Than his son. And she's coming down a flight of stairs for the birthday party, and she's, you know, scandalously dressed, and he's like, "Isn't she wonderful?" I mean, you know, you got to think it's George Burns, right? I mean, and they end up going to sing happy birthday to him. And she starts it off, and she's trying to do her, like, Marilyn Monroe kind of thing. And she gets to singing, then everybody starts joining in, and she makes them all stop singing, because she just wants to do it herself. And she's obviously a ditzy girl, right? But she's there for one thing only, and that's his money. And but anyways, his grandson is there, everybody's there, it's a big social event. And they bring out the cake, and it's got a huge number 81 mounted on the cake, right? Like, you know, the numbers are standing up on the cake, and they're huge. And there's a candle on each side of the numbers. And he gets his grandson to come up, and they're going to blow out the candles, and they ask the granddad to make a wish. We all know what's going to happen here, right? He actually even sings a song called "I Wish I Was 18 Again." At this point, he just looks over the piano player and says, "Give me a B flat," which, you know, or anyways, he sings the song. They blow out the candles. Everything seems normal. They decide to leave the party. Him and his grandson decide to leave the party and go eat somewhere else because they didn't like the company and all that kind of stuff. It's, they're those kind of people. And on the way back from hanging out together, George Burns is driving. They have a car accident. And they wake up in the hospital. And you see, like, a POV camera, and he's looking up. And some doctors are standing over him. And you can hear George Burns' voice of, hey, great, obviously, maybe they should make you a doctor, because they go, oh, he's awake. And then all of a sudden, David's parents are standing over this POV shot and asking, David, are you all right? And he's like, David? I'm not David. So he jumps up on the table and he's like, he asked, how's David? And they're looking at him like, what? They think maybe it's amnesia or something like that, but again, they've switched bodies. And the bad thing is, this is what's different about this movie. Charlie's character, David, is pretty much in a coma this whole movie. And it's only George Burns' character, Jack, who's now in David's body, that's doing stuff. So, that really makes this one kind of different, because you eliminate one half of the story because he's just in a coma dying. I think they're even talking about pulling the plug on him at one point. And really makes it interesting. And of course, you expect what you expect. Here's a guy that's got 81 years experience. He's in an 18-year-old body, and he's taking advantage of everything, right? And like I said, the grandson, David, very shy, doesn't know how to approach people, doesn't know how to talk to girls. Well, of course, George Burns fixed all of that, right? And ends up kind of hooking up with Robin, but doesn't take it any further. And also, in his 18-year-old body, he decides to go back to his house and fool around with, the live-in woman, even though she's kind of made a move at David before, and she's excited because she thinks David has come back, and he's like, I haven't even a chance to tell you that it's Jack yet, So he ends up getting upset, finding out that she's willing to fool around with whoever. She's only after him for his money. So he kind of leaves that situation, and so he gets a discovery about the people around him. He finds out that his son doesn't like the job that Jack has put him in. He'd rather do another part. He belongs in R&D. So research and development, if you don't know. And, he never realized this. So he gets to hear this, from another standpoint. Another cool thing about this is, at one point is, even though we're in the young body, he hooks back up with Red Buttons, Charlie, and lets him know, hey, that's really me. How do I know all these things that you and I did when we were kids? Well, your granddad must have told you this. No, I don't. I mean, this is me. And he finally convinces him that it's really him. So you get that kind of neat thing going on. This all boils down to a competition between the leader of the frat party and David / Jack at a poker party or poker game, and they decide that they're going to put all that aside and they'll take it out to the track, and $1,000 to whoever beats the other, right? So there you go. There's your scenario, and they're both fighting over the girl. There's quite a bit more details to all this stuff, but I'm just trying to shorten it down for you. But at the end of the day, Red Buttons comes up and tells, young Jack that, hey, the family is at the hospital and they're talking about pulling the plug. So instantly we take off, we're going to the hospital, and you get, Jack, young Jack, going to the hospital and getting his grandfather out of a room and still in the bed, in the hospital bed, and he's rolling him down the hallways trying to escape with him, and ends up them crashing into kind of like the little ministry church that they have at the hospital. And in the process of them having that crash, they end up kind of landing on top of each other. His hands touch, and they swap back again, right? So all is well, right? We get everything figured out. I'm leaving out a lot of details because I think you ought to check this one out, right? So that's kind of my take on this one. I give it a 4 out of 5, kind of middle of the road with everything else. I recommend it, though. I really think you ought to check this out. If you're enjoying these kind of flicks, I think you definitely have to check this one out. It's different enough, and it's George Burns. And this young guy, Charlie Slater, does a really good George Burns impersonation for a young person. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy this one. All right, folks, that's it for this one. So just like always, check out all the other episodes everywhere you listen to podcasts. And till then, we will check you later.
Dr. Lube!